Hey, good evening, good day, good afternoon. Welcome back to Café con CJ. It's an honor to be here again. My gosh, we got some interesting people. Some of the old school players, but I think we should have a good time today. Don't forget to like the YouTube thing and podcast and subscribe and tell all your friends. But we're going to start out just a little thing that I put together a while ago. Is that it goes like tomatoes, cucumbers, oranges, bell peppers, strawberries, apples, grapes, peaches, pears, cherries, potatoes, asparagus, cauliflower, beets, lettuce, garlic, onions, chilies, and nuts. Some of you. Planted and picked by undocumented labor. Mm-hmm. Slaves in the fields. They are some of the poorest workers in the U.S. Low pay, few breaks, poor sanitation, exposure to pesticides and chemicals, lack of health care, denied the right to organize. Waiters, busboys, cooks, construction workers, pool cleaners, maids, janitors. Professionals like doctors, lawyers, actors, Pulitzer Prize winners. Professionals who interact with us every day are undocumented. The dreamers, the youngsters that are friends with our children that attend our schools are undocumented. Many of the young men and women who protect, defend, and die in this service of our nation are or were undocumented or have family, including spouses, that are undocumented. Never forget, there's a guy by the name of Jose Gutierrez. He was a United States Marine who came to this nation without papers. He was undocumented. Some people would call him illegal. Well, he was one of the first servicemen to give his life for our country in the Iraq conflict. So the next time a friend, a neighbor demeans undocumented, remind them of the sacrifice to give for us on behalf of this great nation. It's not just taking. They give with their life in this country. No one is illegal. Why is it we call undocumented people illegal? What could possibly be the motivation to incite such rhetoric of hatred? No one is illegal. People are hiding the racism behind the arguments of illegal and illegal. They turn away the children and remove their own humanity because we are a nation of laws. That's what their excuse is. Today's topic, hopefully a little bit about fascism and our great governor, DeSantis, maybe a little bit about Trump. And, of course, talking about this topic, always immigration. July 1 was our anniversary. First, I want to say hi to Clayman Kidd. He's here with us. Clayman, how are you?
I'm good.
A law graduate and trying to make his life happen. Charles McKenzie, my gosh, known him for years, a political activist, a man of God first and foremost, and of course, our good friend, Gregorio Moyo. What do you call yourself officially for these things? I mean, I don't know. When you're running for Harvard, it's got to be Moyo. What are you going to be?
Moyo
DJ Moyo?
Yeah.
I don't know.
When I was in elementary school, it was Greg.
I love that. That's Greg. I love Greg. Gee, Greg, thanks to have you here,
Hey,
Greg.
Greg.
Yeah. Anyway, July 1, what happened, guys?
What did happen?
It's supposed to new law. Did anything happen? Clayman, anybody?
Yeah, a lot of new laws went into effect. The immigration bill, which we've been talking about the last few weeks, it went into effect. There's not really that much to say about it until some people sue over it. I know that that's not the only law that went into effect. A bunch did, like the Don't Say Gay bill. And some laws are already being sued over. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Well, what do you think? Do you think that DeSantis has got a victory with all this? I mean, has it helped him in what he's done?
Well, I think it appeals to a certain segment of our population. And I think that when it comes to cult leadership, you have people who vie for that leadership spot. And I think in this country today, we have political interests that are being driven by cultism. And I think we have people vying for that post.
Yeah, I would say it's a form of fascism.
It is an expression of fascism, and cultism is always one of the aspects of fascism.
You know, Buttigieg, our Secretary of Transportation, is openly gay. He's married to a man and have a child or two, and he's always the attack by Fox, always attacked by the fascist groups. And he made a comment when he was under attack again about, especially about this "Don't Say Gay" law that you were talking about. He said about DeSantis, who are you trying to help? I mean, who are you trying to make better? It's like as a political figure or somebody who leads, you should be asking that every day. What are you trying to make better? And so I was thinking, I don't think DeSantis tried to do anything. What do you think, Charles?
Well, he's trying to help himself. As I mentioned before, you have people who are vying for certain pivotal positions, and some people are just quintessential politicians, and at all costs, they have a thirst or hunger or greed for power, and they will do anything and everything they feel is necessary to get themselves in that position. When I ran for office, I said to people who would question me about whether or not I was going to look up dirt or throw dirt on my opponent.
Right.
I said, if you'll do anything to get in office, you'll do anything to stay in office. So I stayed away from that.
Well, the problem is good people usually don't get elected. Won't compromise themselves.
Well, I think that depends on when you look at the historical track. There are, in my opinion, good people who did get elected, and sometimes the people we prefer don't get elected, and those we prefer not be in the position get elected. So I don't know if we could say that scientifically, but it does appear that way at times.
Yeah, it seems like DeSantis and the guys that worry about themselves and this fascist kind of role they're taking. You mentioned a bunch of laws that are now in effect in Florida. We had, what do we have? The Don't Say Gay law that you just
that
mentioned.
deals with pronouns in schools. Teachers are now not allowed to use a student's preferred pronoun. So someone can say to a teacher, I want you to call me she, her, and the teacher, if that student's sex is male, can't do that.
They've also done that. I think the legislature under DeSantis, because there's no checks and balances, there's no Democrats in charge. They put over $12 million in a line item for relocating migrants from the state. I mean, think about it. We could use our state money for a lot of things, but no, we're going to put them on planes in false.
Is that the same money that was also made so that he can enforce the law? Is that the same fund?
No, that's
no. It's a
no.
different...
This is he's got $12 million to put people on aircraft and send them to another state, even though they're not in Florida when he sends them. He sends them from Texas.
Yeah,
and they've been Colombian and Venezuelan immigrants who, by the way, are asking for political asylum, which is the way they're supposed to do it. He also has laws that how race is discussed in school. I think that's another thing, right? He has another law telling social media companies what they can and cannot do or say. He's criminalized peaceful protest. He's twice suspended or the elected official, the prosecutor from Hillsborough County. He was elected twice, and he was suspended for no reason outside the fact that he said he probably wouldn't enforce. Years ago, he said he wouldn't enforce abortion laws if they were on the books, and for that reason, he didn't even not enforce it. He was just removed.
Well, that's the first thing that happened with Chronister, right? When he just came out and said that he's not immigration and his officers are not going to take that role. And everyone asks, is like, well, how long will Chronister actually be there? Because no vaya a ser que venga DeSantis and come over and try to remove him.
Right. That's the truth. I mean, this guy, first, he's not law-abiding. He doesn't care about the Constitution. And he definitely, and these things all play towards fascism. We'll talk about it. And, of course, we had a federal judge on the 3rd reverse or block the Republican law, DeSantis law, restrictions on voter registration groups.
Yes.
Calling it the Florida assault on the right to vote. So there's all these programs that DeSantis has been involved in and laws that really take our rights away. I think it's the first time in our history that rights are being taken away rather than given.
Well, you could say that in the sense that maybe in recent times, you've not seen that. But, for example, I had a gentleman say to me the other day that indentured servanthood was similar to slavery. When blacks and Europeans or Africans and Europeans first came to this country, they were essentially indentured servants, but that changed over time. The laws changed. Blacks became stigmatized by race. restrictions were placed on their freedom, and then you eventually had African children who were born into slavery because the laws changed. Indentured servitude is not the same as slavery.
Okay.
And it certainly was not the same as slavery as it was practiced in this country. And I think regarding this taking away of freedoms and laws and the things that our governor is presently doing, history repeats itself. We tend to not learn from history. He is doing some of the same kinds of things that were done in Nazi Germany. He's doing some of the same kinds of things that were done under Mussolini in Italy. So it's repeating itself. And we don't seem to have learned from history that these kinds of things do not work. They're counterintuitive. They work against the collective good of a society. We don't learn from
Well,
that.
I think you made a great point that what is DeSantis' agenda? And it's about getting elected president. It's about himself. It's not about helping his people in his state. I mean, just think about it. Just the other day they were talking. Homeowners insurance average in Florida is $6,000 a year. The United States average is $1,700 a year, and it's getting worse. And more companies are leaving the state. And they, of course, who are they going to blame for any problem with insurance? Trial lawyers. And he's stepped on the trial bar on March 24th when he passed those laws that are going to hinder the consumer big time. And since that date, since that laws have passed, the insurances have doubled. And then go to auto and policies and so forth. I don't understand why insurance for auto industry should be so high in Florida when you're not required to have liability insurance or uninsured motorists. Other states that have required BI and UM, and trial lawyers too, by the way, seem to be able to do it for a fraction of the cost that we do in Florida. So he's trying to say he's going to bring Florida to the rest of the country. God forbid if you're the rest of the country. You vote for this buffoon, you're going to be cutting your own throat. He's a cult leader, I think. Isn't he trying to be with Trump?
What we have on the one hand is a legislature and a governor who represent one party. And they represent, to a great extent, the extreme expressions of that party. And I think what applies to that is something that comes from one of Shakespeare's plays.
All right.
That power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I think we're seeing that evidenced by his behavior.
Well, I think when you're in politics or in that roles to just have that position and to be dictatorial, I think this is what comes of it. I mean, if you think about it, I really was torn that we are leading a path down a fascist road. You know, in Hitler Germany, the Nazi Party was elected. It came out of a base of a form of democracy. Yes. It's a Nazi party, political party that they won election and then brought their whole concept forward. If you think about it, fascism, I think it was Mussolini, another Italian that sort of coined it, sort of like DeSantis from his people. But he was a dictator, a fascist.
I think the most dangerous form of fascism we have in this country is Christian fascism.
Ooh,
I think it is religious in nature.
Okay,
and quite frankly, traditional religion has been a part of the problem.
Well, I would agree with
the
that.
way it's been interpreted. I mean, for example, during Hitler's reign and during World War II, the church that actually helped to transport former Nazis out of Germany and to save him was the Catholic Church.
Sure, absolutely.
And you had high-ranking officials in that church that worked along with it. And the Catholic Church, during the time that Hitler was in office,
they cut a deal.
They worked along with him.
Yeah, they cut a deal to allow that the state of the Vatican be the Vatican is its own country within Italy, and who was the leader of that time, Mussolini. He was the fascist that we're sort of talking about. And they cut a deal to preserve their country, their status, so you have ambassadors that serve at the Vatican and so forth. But why would that be surprising, since they're the ones that did the papal bulls that said that blacks aren't human?
Yeah, exactly. And all those kinds of things.
The church is behind that, and it's not just. By the way, it's not just the Catholic Church; it's Christianity and religion in general.
And
is that fair to say?
Religions, all religions, and there's some 4,200 of them on the planet. Through the misinterpretation.
By the way, I just got my books that got delivered yesterday.
Okay.
What was the title?
Conversations with God.
Conversations with God. I just read one page and I've just started. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too, because it's very mind blowing. But if you think about it, fascism, they always have to have an enemy. All right, it's the other. It's them against us. And in the time of Nazism, it was the Jews, right? They're the ones that are ruining us because the fascists are the one that want the power. Trump, vis-a-vis, and DeSantis, they're going to attack immigrants. They're going to attack, if you're leftist, they're going to attack liberals. They're going to attack minorities. They're going to attack homosexuals, trans people, women. They're going to attack the other and say, and it's very crazy in a sense. They say they will solve the problem of these people. And fascism is born out of the right wing. It's based on ultranationalism, pro-military. I had a definition here. Far-right, authoritarian, ultranationalist political ideology and movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized by autocracy, militaristic, forcible suppression of the opposition, belief in natural social hierarchy, subordination of individual interests for the perceived good of the nation. So they how they get in power is they say, those guys over there, those trans people, those black people, those the Jews, they're making your life horrible. They're a threat to us. And if you think about it, what happened? I have the picture up here of Obama's inauguration.
Yeah.
I stood in the crowd. It was freaking freezing.
Well,
we cried.
I hear you.
Thinking it was a new beginning.
Right. I hear
and it
you.
wasn't to
I
them.
hear you, and there's a lot of substance of what you're saying. I take a slightly different position on that. I think human beings do that.
Of course they
I don't
do.
think I don't think the right is the only one guilty.
No.
of that.
No. I'm not saying it's not a human trait. I mean, because I lived in Africa 7 years, and I'll tell you like about Nigeria. 3 different major tribes, all black, but culturally different. The food is different. The language, they shit on each other. I mean, it's not because they're you would think they'd all be
that's
brothers.
not to excuse the behavior, but Thoreau said this. He said there are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one digging at the root. And I think the root cause has to do with, I come back again, and no one has to agree with me, I come back again to beliefs precipitate behaviors. And as long as human beings believe they're separate, as long as human beings believe that they are not connected and that life is not circular,
That's the
we're
reason
going
of
to
these
continue
problems. Yeah.
doing what we do. The root cause of it is this sense of separation, and I think traditional religion and a lot of our other ideological frameworks help to perpetuate that.
Yeah, but all nationalism involves a mythic past. In the past, we were great. Have you heard Trump say, make America great again? Okay. In the past, we were great. Our greatness consists in the military. They're always very pro-military. In the past, the dominant racial group ruled over the rest. We were great when our white men, people, and because of our country, okay, maybe different in Africa, different in different places, a human trait, I won't disagree with you, but we ruled, we were great, and that's been taken away from you. And I, the leader, can solve your problems.
So this is the way that they do it. It is a human trait, but this is the way that it is painted to us.
Yeah, because
every
think about
time,
it. When
in
George
order for us
Floyd
to
defund the police,
Yeah.
they're trying. You see, they're coming after you. The blacks are coming up, and the anti-woke agenda.
Yeah.
You have to understand, this is not by chance. And like Mackenzie says, it's been repeated. The leftists, the communists, the others want to weaken our military, our police. They want to weaken our greatness. And they go on. They have that friend-enemy distinction. They are a merciless threat to our very existence. The trans people, the homosexuals.
What a threat.
Yeah, well, God, they're so amazing. I can't believe it. I don't know.
I have
Go
one
ahead.
point to add about
Sure.
fascism generally. A lot of times, fascism doesn't get started based off of someone demonizing another group. A lot of times, it's based off of their saying ideas of protecting their own group. So they don't specify, like back in early Nazi Germany, they might not have specified Jews are evil. They might have said, we have to protect the Aryans.
Yes.
So with the trans issue, they don't even have to say trans people are evil. They just say, we're protecting our kids.
Yeah.
But exactly. But I was thinking, well, why would somebody vote for Trump or DeSantis? This kind of mindset. And this is where I was going to Obama. When there has been a lot of change in society, and Germany was, there was World War I, they were being stepped on. This is, in my opinion, the greatness after World War II that kept this peace forever was the Marshall Plan. General Marshall. Then they said when we defeated the Germans, when we defeated in World War II the Japanese, what do? We spent a lot of money building up their countries. Because after World War I, they just screwed Germany, and that was the basis what brought up Hitler and allowed fascism into Germany. And we learned from, the people that study history, like 2% of us, maybe, not even, understood that when it's, okay, let's go.
You talk the Treaty of Versailles.
Yeah, after World War I.
World War I. And the crash of the stock market. There were a lot of taking land from Germany and telling them they could only have a military that was this size, and it was overdone.
And it hurt them economically.
It hurt them, and it left a vacuum, in a sense, for Hitler to come in with his nationalistic ideas.
Well, I'll throw another one out, more recent. How about when the Russians were fighting in Afghanistan? And it was during the reign of, who was our president?
George
Reagan.
Bush? Reagan?
Reagan.
Oh, way back
and
then.
we support, in the 80s, and we supported the Taliban, the guys that end up being our enemy. And there's a movie, I think it's one of my favorite actors. What's the guy? Tom Hanks, I think he's in it. And what happens is he was playing a congressman, a conservative congressman, Republican, and they defeat, the Taliban defeat the Russians. They leave with their tail between their legs. And then he goes to Reagan and says, now we got a fund to build Afghanistan. We need to invest in Afghanistan. They need schools, they need education. And he said, no. Okay. Why is that important? Unlike the Marshall Plan, where we funded Japan and Germany after World War II, we stuck it to them. We said, fuck you. And then what happens? 20 years later, who's then involved in attacking us? And, it's like a big circle.
It is a circle, and what goes around comes around. And those are fundamental. That's a fundamental thing that we have not embraced as a species.
And I think in the United States, what was the triggering factor of this fascism movement is when Obama got elected. And because, like I said, I cried, I cheered. I was in the White House with them. I saw their first dances. I mean, I was right there. I was a part of that, and I thought the world was changing. We had finally, we're going to get beyond this crap. And, well, to some, like me, it was fantastic progress, but to others, it felt like a threat, particularly white males. Sorry to say that here. And again, it's not just the United States. They promised the people the utopia of the past. That's what Trump is doing.
Yeah.
And that's what DeSantis is doing. Turn back the clock. It can't happen because we are a multiracial democracy. And by the way, one trait of all fascist leaders is that they're arrogant. And I'll throw in SOBs. And what is DeSantis? And what is Trump? They have the exact definition of where we're going with this.
But they have a base that supports them.
Well, because, yes.
Well, we look at, for Germany, for example, you have Adolf Hitler, who was the quintessential fascist and fascist leader and cult leader. But there were 60 million Germans who also bought into his misdeeds and bought into the frameworks that he articulated.
And not only Germans, there was a big Nazi party here in the United States.
Yeah, there was the Bund right here in the United States.
And the black shirts in England.
But I'm not excusing Hitler. I am saying it was broader than just
Of course, but it's usually, in that case, it was the anti-Jewish thing. They control our money. They're controlling us. It's the same playbook. It's like football. You want to win. This is our play to win. This is the same playbook they're using, I think, in Florida and the United States right now. Because what are the other things? Propaganda. Friend-enemy distinction. You know what we mentioned. They are a merciless threat to your very existence. When they are in charge, they subvert the nation. The other are, it's the other argument.
You know, the other thing that is tragic about the repetitive behavior of human beings is, we'll take, for example, a young man like him. His name is, what's your
Clayman.
Clayman. Clayman has a lot of passion, and he articulates that passion. He articulates it well. Our young people look at us. They must look at us and say, you guys are such hypocrites. Because you tell us that you want the world to be a better place. You tell us you believe in Judeo-Christian values. You tell us you are for egalitarianism and all that kind of thing. And then you turn around and do the opposite of that. And what we do is take that fervor and beat it down to such a degree that a lot of young people just give up. And they say, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And that's what happens with a lot of our young people.
But that's done on purpose, in my opinion, by the elites.
No, I'm not suggesting it's not done on purpose. I'm saying it's a shame because a lot of creative energy to shift these things comes out of our young people.
Well, how
but
about
we
this?
beat them down.
But on the fascist thing, another plank of their thing is anti-intellectualism. They don't want people to be smart. They want to dumb your ass down. It's think about it. It's a cult leader that really runs it. Not okay. So universities and colleges that teach multiple perspectives on history are a threat. Now, what's happening in our backyard in Sarasota, Bradenton? What university are we talking about? What college? New college. They're taking over and destroying the public university's liberal arts education school and trying to make it into a Christian college. It's what was said publicly. If you're involved in anything in the news in our area, you'll be aware that the governor is taking on universities that, you go to school not to make money. If you're going to college because you think you're going to make more money, you're a fool. I mean, even having a law degree, you come out with a ton of debt. Am I right? $160,000, $200,000 of debt. You're not making money. Even if you're making money, you got a lot of money to pay back. All right. So you go to college so you're not an ignorant buffoon. So you can study all these things so that they're not going to abuse you and use you. But another plank of fascism is, again, the anti-intellectualism. Do you agree?
Okay. I agree. And I also would say this. Dr. King made this statement at the height of his leadership during the Civil Rights Movement. He said that one day when we look at history, we will not only look at the vitriolic misdeeds of the loud and violent people, but we'll have to consider the appalling silence of the good people. So it is silence becomes complicity. We can talk all day about what's wrong, but then we have to rise to the occasion and do what we can to turn the tide.
I've always thought about, I'm serious when I say that. I visited Dachau. It was a concentration camp. It really, when I was a young guy, I was traveling and I went to Dachau and I was blown away. And I thought,
where was it?
Well, it was a concentration camp. Yeah. During the Auschwitz, I think, was in Poland, wasn't it? Dachau was actually in Germany. But anyway, I was walking through there and thinking about it. I thought, if I were German and I had my daughters and I was living down the road, but my life was good. I had food, everything's wonderful, for the time. I had no complaints, but I knew what they were doing down the road. Mm-hmm. What would I do? Would I do anything? Would I have the courage to risk everything, my life, my children's lives, to make a difference? Mm-hmm. I think the answer for most people is no. I mean, there's so many Germans during that time. I know a few. They're very elderly now, dying. That I've often wondered, how. And then there were the Jews that sold out the other Jews, like Anne Frank. They're saying that they just came out with the person that turned them in. It was a Jewish guy. I mean, how can you do that to benefit yourself? I mean, how low are human beings that we're willing to sell out our brothers and sisters? And I'll tell you, my mom was in an earthquake in Costa Rica once. She was in the building, and the building started shaking and everything. She goes, I wasn't worried about being killed by the earthquake. I was worried about everybody that panicked, that started immediately praying to God for their salvation out loud while they ran over her and almost trampled her to death to get out of the building. They're so religious and so about themselves,
but they won't save them.
But they didn't care about anybody else. That's what human beings are. I mean, I asked the question of myself, what would I do?
Yeah.
I mean, if I did a case, I'm a personal injury lawyer also. I did a case where this truck like a big RV kind of thing went off the road. It was a blown tire and it caught on fire, and everybody stopped. And most people pulled out their cameras and started filming the people dying inside. One man ran into the fire and rescued my friend. And everybody else watched and filmed. Nobody had the courage to risk their life to save him.
I think,
except that one man who was a real hero.
I think, and of course you can disagree with this.
Of course.
That I think the basic instinct of human beings
To survive.
is love.
Oh,
I don't think survival is the first instinct.
really? Love.
I think most of
sex,
us,
maybe.
I
But
think-
what do you mean?
no,
You're not talking
no.
sex, are you?
I think
Because mine is sex back in the day. Now's an old man.
Salute to that.
Yeah, there you go. Then.
That may be your desire. or
Well, I
preference.
know it's his
But
now.
I think that the basic instinct of human beings is love. And I believe that most human beings, if they walked past a burning building and there was a baby crying inside, most human beings would go to try to rescue that child.
You think? I don't
believe
think so.
that. Well, and I think
Not if
that's
they
where,
felt they were-
that's
not
where-
if they felt
that's-
they were- life was in jeopardy.
That is where we run into the ideological framework thing, and that is where religion, I think, has done us a disservice.
So you're saying if we were all interconnected and believed in that, let me see where you're going with that.
There's no
So,
way.
but as Mackenzie, when CJ's thinking, would I do something? Maybe love took over as far as him taking care of his family first. Like, does that?
No,
You know, yes,
no,
yes,
I
you-
don't think so.
No,
Here's
I'm,
what
I'm
I
talking
think.
about an instinctual
Well, I'll
moment.
tell you my-
I'm talking about a moment when you have to decide.
Okay, here's the
will I take
here's the
chance?
reason. I got the answer. It's very simple because I've done a lot of thought of this. Your instinct is to save your own ass.
I don't agree with that.
Oh no, I think it's your instinct. What the difference is that people who think, okay, just like racism. I'll be honest with you. My daughter, when my daughter dated a black guy. You know me to be racist? Do you know me to be a racist?
No.
No, I don't know.
No, okay, okay. To be a racist. I stopped and go, No, I stopped and went, And then I said, that's stupid. What the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
Where did that
But
come
you're,
from? And here's-
but you're talking reflection.
Ye-
there.
yes, but
you're
here's
not
what-
talking instinct.
No.
That's
I think
different.
He
the
said the
instinct,
first- the first thing that
instinct
happened
is
to
when
him.
somebody is different than you, you're going to go, huh.
That is learned behavior.
Well, but my point
That's where
is,
we're going to
what my
disagree.
point is that when you have the intellect and you're able to think through, I think you're born, let's say, not a racist, and your parents make you a racist.
You are conditioned.
And then, yes, you're conditioned. And then at a certain point, you have to say, that's stupid. That's wrong. I'm
Yeah.
going to judge them.
Some people do.
Well, no, I
Some
think that's,
don't.
that's
That's the
where I'm
education
saying
component.
about this instinct. I believe the instinct is self-survival.
I disagree
And then
with that.
if you have a moment to reflect and think, then you go, no,
I disagree with
I'm
that.
going to go and do the right
I
thing.
disagree. I think we've been told
Let's do a
that.
test.
I think we've been told
Let's do
that.
a
No,
test.
and you might find people coming up on that side because we become what we believe. Human beings have been taught that they are sinful creatures. They've been taught that your first instinct is self-survival. We've been taught that you're different than the other.
Exactly.
We've been taught that
Exactly.
you're disconnected.
Yes.
And I believe all of those are lies.
Yes, but we have to think through the prejudice. We got to think through the indoctrination because a simple thing
The
as
worst-
becoming a Democrat
I would
against
say-
my dad was like
venture,
amazing.
I would venture to say this: that the most ardent racist, if there were a baby in a burning building, would probably go in there to save that child.
A black man, a black child.
A black child, green
A
child,
Muslim
yellow
child?
child. Yeah.
Hell no.
No.
Hell
I
no.
disagree with that. And I think that's a part of the problem.
Okay.
We have been sold a bill of goods and we've embraced it.
Okay, Moyo, we're going to turn to you because he's choking himself up over this comment. What do you think of this argument? Would you agree or disagree? Now, honestly,
I think
stand by.
I think survival is the first. Now I understand what you're saying that we were taught this, but I think it is our first instinct.
I disagree.
Really,
I disagree.
I don't. I mean,
how about you, Clayman?
Love
Any comment on this argument that we're having here or discussion?
I think the most ardent racist would let a baby die.
Well,
and he's entitled to believe
well,
that.
I just
but
know.
I don't.
I
It's
just
happened.
know that
It's
that
happened.
And people who are not ardent
they
racists
just
have done that.
convicted.
So it's not.
There's a trial going on.
It's not just reserved to the ardent racists.
They just killed everybody, all the Jews in the synagogue, and that guy had no problem massacring.
We've been conditioned
Okay.
to believe certain things, and it precipitates our behavior.
Yes, but my point is, we're going to. I don't disagree. I agree 100%. But I even have to stop and reflect for a second. It only took me a millisecond. But then I said, that's stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like also, okay, I was talking race, but it could be like, he's a DJ? Fuck. No way he's dating my daughter. You know, it could be many of other things, but, you know, you have to like, okay, he might be a good guy. I mean, you think, I'm joking, but
And I mean,
I'm
that's
not.
a relative term. Good. That's a relative
Well, he'll
term.
treat my old lady good, my daughter well.
Yeah.
You know, he'd be a good man in that respect. But I think that's my opinion is because I think when that's the idea of why they want to dumbify us, to destroy education. And by the way, the R's are doing that very good in Florida. And let me just mention that real quick. They're privatizing all the schools. In my opinion, is they take public money. They're taking public money, which goes for education. They create all these charter schools that are private, and I know firsthand they're expecting them to kick back money to the political class.
That's not your opinion. That's a fact.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, it's a fact. I know this for a fact. So it's not only do they dumbify a lot of the people in school and what they're taught, but they also make money from it that they couldn't do before. I want to say that democracy requires truth, the truth.
What is truth?
Well, here we go. You're not free if you're being lied to. Equality requires truth. Political equality is truth. And our voices are equal. We're not equal in real life, but our goal should be that we have an equal voice. We can speak truth to power. And if you want to rip the heart out of democracy, what do? You get people used to lies. So you got a president, our 45th president, that lied at least, they claim, over 30,000 times while he was in the White House.
Right out of Goebbels' playbook.
Okay, and what were they? Fascists?
Absolutely.
So you get people to accept lies.
Well, he said
to get used to lies.
Said the bigger the lie and the more it's repeated, the more believable it becomes.
Exactly. And see, I guess what I'm trying to say too is that we're talking about fascism, but what we're seeing today in Florida and in part of the country with Trump is out of the playbook of the Nazis, of Mussolini, out of all the guys that have always done this. It's like if people would be educated, they would understand what they're being hoodwinked.
The historical track is there.
Yeah, the moment that DeSantis changed the law where he don't have to resign from being a governor to run, that was garbage.
No, well, it's garbage because
like,
he's the dictator here.
Exactly.
Like I tell you, he calls the shot in Florida.
We have a one-party system.
Not only one party, he dominates that party.
Yeah,
he is the Mussolini of Florida.
He is the leader of that party.
And he doesn't care.
And they march in step with him.
Exactly.
You know what's interesting? I watched a video of him. I think it came out like 3 days ago, and he was in San Diego.
The gay stuff.
He was in San Diego.
Okay.
Walking the streets and just, man, it's a shame what this city has become. And he's kind of playing. But I'm watching the video and I look at it as like as
San Diego's amazing.
to be
city.
neutral,
I
right?
live there.
So, but he's saying how bad it's gotten. So
Fantastic.
But he's pointing out the homeless on the street.
No,
He's
okay.
talking to the police officers, and he's like, "This wouldn't be like this if you were in my state." He goes, "Come over."
Let's talk about it.
He says,
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Okay,
That is out of the playbook of fascism. It's right here.
it's right there.
Urban versus rural. Cities is where there is decadence, where elites congregate, who are the enemy of fascists. There are immigrants and criminality. You need to go to the city and shit on the city and the people of the city, and then because it's us against them, the rural people are real hard-working people. If you live in the country, the people of the city are soft and fat, and they're full of immigrants. Okay, without knowing it, you got DeSantis number 9 rule, Sodom and
Yeah.
Gomorrah, right out of the book.
I sat there and I watched it like, wow.
You want to be the fascist dictator, you don't have to reinvent it. You just go by the playbook that already exists.
Wow.
You just brought up number 9.
Yeah.
Think about it.
It's crazy.
Where are the immigrants? In the cities. Where's criminals? Where are the blacks? Who controls a lot of the big cities in the country? African Americans, the mayors are black. I can't tell you how many people I hear, Trumpistas. The other night, 4th of July, I was talking to people how the cities are.
When the jobs leave and the tax base leaves, you're going to have
That's the
decline.
reason. That's the reason.
That's the underlying cause of a lot of that.
But what I'm saying is that DeSantis has pulled out the playbook, Fascism 101, and there one of them is attack the cities.
Absolutely.
San Diego was a beautiful city. Now look at it.
Yeah.
The immigrants, those undocumented, evil brown people. I mean, this is out of the playbook.
I was there not too long ago, and it was amazing.
Like I said, I love San Diego. I really do.
And even what's the city? Detroit.
Yeah, I love
is making
Detroit.
a comeback.
It's been a really
big
cool
comeback,
city.
because
Yeah.
the people have decided to take that creative energy and do something with it. Talking about this illegal thing. First of all, I tell my students this.
We good?
First
Go ahead.
Americans, Native Americans, were here before any of us were. Now, there were trade groups that came over here.
Right.
Maybe some of the Nordsmen came.
Yeah,
African
Erickson, right.
trips, Africans trading, and there are traces of that. Sertima talks about it, and the Asians came over. But the indigenous groups that were here populated North, Central, and South America.
Right.
And many of these people we're calling illegal are direct descendants of these people.
Oh, absolutely.
And I said in one of your meetings a few years ago, when Mexicans cross the border and come into Texas, they're coming home.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what is funny? I remember I got a book from an attorney that worked with me, Andres Kobayashi. He's an attorney in town here, Mexican guy. His parents gave me a book of, it was the Aztec, and they're showing the picture of Aztec Empire, and it's well into the United States. And I'm thinking, the first thing I go, holy, that's wrong. That's not Mexico.
Yeah,
That's the United
Florida was
States.
Mexico.
Of course. Well, actually, you want to know the
Texas,
truth.
California, all that was
Well,
Mexico.
actually, Florida was Spain. In the year
Well, it was a Spanish colony.
2055,
No,
on the
before.
year
Before.
2055, it's when the flag of the Stars and Stripes will fly over Florida the same amount of time as the flag of Spain. The oldest city in the New World was La Siempre Fiel Ciudad, with St. Augustine. 33 years before the
and
Pilgrims
and
arrived.
a slave port.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
well, 33 years before the Pilgrims arrived, St. Augustine was already happening. And what's it? Juan Ponce, I call him Puerto Rican. The Puerto Ricans
Ponce
get
de
pissed.
Leon.
Ponce
Yeah,
de
get
Leon.
pissed off. He named because they're not Puerto Rican. That was a Spaniard. Okay, but he named La Florida, and it was Pascua was
Yeah, flowers.
Yes,
Land of flowers.
And so. The Spanish, the reason we have a cattle industry is because of Spain. They spoke Spanish here where we're sitting.
This illegal stuff started in 1884 with the Chinese Exclusion Act.
Of course,
in
they talk
California,
about terrible stuff then.
banning Chinese workers from coming to the country. Now,
They're the
as
others.
long as they were coming from Europe and they were going through Ellis Island,
They're
and places,
white.
it was fine.
Yes.
All you had
Give
to do
'em
was
land.
all you had to do was
Give 'em
get
land.
to America. Yeah,
Give 'em 100
You Give
acres.
them land grant
Yeah.
colleges to
Yeah.
help with the mechanized
Yeah.
farming and all that kind
Absolutely.
of thing. Undergird your European peasants. Free, so-called free, the African, empty-handed.
Yes, no land, nothing.
No land,
And
no
natured
education.
slavers,
Yes.
eventually.
So they go back to sharecropping.
Well,
and
we're
that
going
kind
to
of thing.
talk about how they started arresting. You know what they do here in the South? Because Florida was the number one state in the South for lynching. And the number one county in Florida was DeSoto County,
Wow.
just 2 blocks away up here. They lynched more people there than any, and Florida was number one. We were the Deep South. The Gamble Mansion right here on Ellington, big time slave plantation, and one of the leaders of the South hid there after the Civil War, trying to escape prosecution.
And Andrew Jackson and Grenada, what
Right.
he did
Right.
to the black settlement there,
Right.
slaughtered those people. But this whole notion of illegals started when people in this country of European descent decide, and they did the same. See, this is the human element. When the Irish came, they
They were
settled in the
shit on.
ghettos.
They were shit on.
And then the Italians came.
And they were
And
shit
all of
on.
a sudden, they were the criminals.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
Well, they are.
They were the hoodlums.
Come on, they brought the mafia. Come on.
Well, we can't, but you can't paint that with a wide
Well,
brush.
DeSantis is a mafia guy
Yeah,
or
well,
a fascist.
okay. Let's be careful.
Well, I can't be racist.
Let's be sensitive.
I love Italians. I go to Italy all the time, man. I had a race team there last year. I love Italy. I love Italians. The men,
But you're right.
But the
You
men are better
started
looking
with
than the women. Come
No
on.
human being, no human being is illegal.
Yes.
This world belongs to all of us. Stewardship is another thing. Stewardship is not ownership. If you work the land and you establish and build upon it, you get stewardship. The Native American culture allowed for that. Stewardship, not ownership. We work the land and we move on and somebody else gets it and they work
I think
it.
next time we're going to be talking why Latin America is different than North America or South America is and Central America. Some interesting topics you're bringing up, but I agree with you. Hierarchy I want to mention. One group of us is not better than another group of us. This is what you're saying, basically. Once the opposite has been established, that one group is in fact better than the rest, it sets up people to believe they may lose their position. That's the basis of fascism. So your argument is we're always interconnected. I think I got that. If there's anything I learned from you.
It's not just my argument.
Well,
It's what science
it's the
tells us.
truth. Okay.
Science tells us that not only are we connected to each other, but we're connected to everything in
But
existence.
fascism, it needs to disconnect us. It needs to show the other.
Yeah, it needs to give that appearance at least.
You gotta
to
get in
build-
there.
to build that illusion.
You need to be on that mic. I know you're a hard thing to get close to that
Okay,
thing,
listen,
but don't
yeah.
be
He loves
afraid.
chilling though. He loves chilling.
No.
McKinney.
He wanted to say something.
Yeah, fascism tends to create an in-group that they claim are victimized. So
Yes.
in the case of Germany,
Sure.
Hitler built a big following saying that Germans deserved the land. It was their land, and they're the victims because they don't have it. I think in this country, the fascism that I'm seeing is Christian fascism. It's Christians or people who are at least claiming to be Christians, depending on how you
I think
view
that's the better
Christianity,
term. Heaven is wide open, baby.
who are... I lost my train of thought. They are... They're saying that they're victims. They're acting as if the laws in the country are changing such that it hurts their religious freedoms.
Yeah, but let me ask you something, because I go to this doctor guy thing, and he's a big Christian fundamentalist, I think. And he says to me, why do I have to send my child? Why does my child have to be subjected to the trans concepts and homosexuality discussions at school? Why is it that if I believe, and I'm the dad, and I run my house, and this is my kid, that we have to, that they should have even books like that in the school? Why is it that we should be talking about menstruation? Or, I mean, that's also been banned by, for certain ages, even though the ages that you can get your menstrual period is right where they're banning it. They might have kids that have questions or whatever. But he's saying, well, as a father, why do I have to send my children to be subjected to that?
Why do his children have to be minions? Why do they have to be inundated and be ingested with what he believes should be the framework
my
of their
children.
lives? But he doesn't own them.
Oh, yes,
And
I
he's-
do, till
He
they're
does
18.
not own them. He may have stewardship of them, but he does
Yeah.
not own them. And school is the perfect place for them to learn all those things. It's neutral ground.
But as a
it's
parent-
where it can be looked. As a parent, you do not have the right to make minions of your children.
No, but we are the first educators.
But quite often, you're the uneducated,
Yeah, and that
and you're
happens a lot.
uneducating your children.
That
That's why
happens a lot.
teenage pregnancy, et cetera, et cetera.
Well,
We don't
some
talk
of
about
some
sex.
of the highest frequency of teenage pregnancy is in fundamental churches that preach against it.
Really?
Really, the statistics are there.
I mean, we live in a society. We all live with and among each other. So it's important that people have a common understanding of the way that the world works. It's important that schools teach facts
Yes.
instead of an opinion that the legislature says is a fact. And it's important that people have this shared understanding of things. Otherwise, we can't function together. Really,
I think you bring
we
up a
wouldn't
great
be able
point.
to pass
I think
environmental
it's beautifully
regulations
stated.
if we are arguing about what's harming the environment.
Well, back in the day, and the reason this country, had so many immigrants come in is that you could always go west. We were such a vast territory that was open from the Europeans.
Go west, young man.
Well, you could kill people and go left, and
Well,
nobody
that's
would
what
know
they
where
did.
you are. Now we're on top of each other. You can't go
Yeah.
anywhere. I mean, people all around us, and we got to function together.
Well, that's
Well, we were on
that's
top of other people.
urbanization.
Well, I'm talking the whole
Back
country's
then.
urbanized. I mean, we're just
Well, we still have
overpopulated.
large pockets of land.
Yeah,
that
but
are
not much.
not
I mean,
being
we're
used.
over the highest
Well, see,
overpopulation.
I think that's a misunderstanding. I don't think there's a shortage of anything except a willingness to share collectively in this world.
Because we're all connected.
Not because we're all connected, because there is enough.
There's
There
enough,
is
I agree.
enough.
Really?
Actually, well, as far as land goes, we have enough land to
We have enough
produce
resources.
enough food. We have enough resources to
Yes.
sustain
To
15
sus-
billion people.
Yes, we have it. But
too
it's
many
because
people.
we think there's a shortage and because of our hoarding and our greed that we have this disproportionality.
There goes the toilet paper.
Yeah, what's that? Well, okay, you may joke, but that's the truth. I
Exactly.
thought about it. Everybody goes and gets all the toilet. I go, what's wrong with people? I mean, why do you have to go buy everything out of the store and leave your neighbor with nothing? I mean,
It goes
why
right
do you
back
do
to what we were
that?
talking about in the beginning.
You don't
no?
even need toilet paper. You can wash yourself. I mean, really. No, it's really sad.
Let's
There's
leave-
a hurricane coming. I got all the water. Screw you, brother.
Let's lead with love, not with fear of running out of
I
toilet
don't
paper.
know. It sounds crazy, but that's why I don't have the faith you do on our interconnectedness and people doing the right thing. Maybe you are right. I hope you are correct.
It's not. It really is not a matter of right or wrong. It's a matter of what works for us as a species.
This is why I love
and
you.
we're doing a lot of things
why I love
that
you,
don't
Charles.
work for us, and we're not learning from history. That doesn't work. It
Well,
does not work.
A victimhood is another thing of fascism. Tell people they are victims of equality. For example, you're victims of the Jews, are victims of black Americans, equality. Men are victims of feminism. They should be better. They have earned a position in the hierarchy than others. Being equally actually makes you a victim. In other words, what they're trying to say, they're trying to do is that because the others are coming, taking over the brown people are coming in.
I didn't know there was a problem until they told me there was a problem. It's like you. Oh, what? I'm a victim. I didn't know. This is what they do.
Well, so they can. It's done for power.
Yeah.
It is done for power.
Okay, law and order. The minority group, by its nature, is not law-abiding. Loyalty to the dominant group means that you are law-abiding. Members of the minority group who accept being subservient are law-abiding. The members of the dominant group, by their nature, are law-abiding, just by being members of it. And the leader can violate the law, by the way. Trump, this is immoral. They're arresting me. I can't believe I'm doing this to protect you. Law and order does not mean justice or equality. Law and
doesn't.
order structures who is legitimate and who is not under the fascist idea. So, I mean, the reality is the minute I remember during the January 6th riots, people saying the first defense I hear from these whack jobs are, well, they don't do that to the Black Lives Matter protesters. I said, the January 6 people were treated nicely.
They were.
If they were brown or black people,
Oh,
they
my
would have been
goodness.
gunned
They've been
down on
slaughtered.
the steps.
Oh, yeah.
There have
They would
been
have gunned
hundreds of
down.
It
them
would have been
slaughtered
shot.
out
It would
there.
have
that
been
day.
the total
But I
shooter.
can't tell you
Absolutely.
how many January 6 sympathizers are saying that and then Seattle, they didn't do anything. And I go, okay, you're a freaking, okay, they're fascists without even realizing they're being set up to support fascist doctrine.
Absolutely.
Do you agree with that? Anybody disagree?
No disagree.
Sexual anxiety. Your women and children are under threat. You and your family need to be protected. And I can protect you. DeSantis.
Yeah.
Okay? They make conservatives historically afraid of transgender people, homosexuality. They claim that these people are trying to destroy your lives and you need the fascists to protect you because they are coming after you and your family. Now, they don't call themselves fascists. DeSantis is not going to call himself that. But that's what it is. This is right out of the playbook. Tell me if I'm wrong. Anybody want to comment, or are we good?
No, I think we agree that
Right.
he's taking things right out of the playbook. That's the repetitive part of the historical track.
There's if you look at the gates of Auschwitz, and I have the translation. I can't say it in German, but it says, "Work shall make you free." It's actually one of the January 6th guys that was in the Capitol that got arrested had the T-shirt with that on it.
Really?
Because he loves Trump and he's a fascist. Of course, he's a white supremacist. He's wearing the Auschwitz T-shirt. I mean, the white supremacist T-shirts. And it says, in English, you would say, "Work shall make you free." And it's written on the gate of Auschwitz. The idea that the minority group is lazy and they need to be made to work. Okay, these are some basic principles of fascism. And I think we're seeing it.
244 years of chattel slavery, unpaid labor. And you want to tell me I need to work?
This is a good point. Yeah. Well, that's what they do. And you think about it, what they did to the Jews in Auschwitz and Dachau around and others.
Parallels.
It's. I think we're heading down that road in our beautiful state of Florida.
But I think we can stop it, and that is
that's why we're doing this.
Do.
Yeah, it's the work.
Yeah, and this is a part of that.
We're trying to educate. We're trying to make you think.
Critical mass is 15%. You know what critical mass is?
Talk to me.
Domino effect. 15% of collective energy in any one direction, and you can start a domino effect.
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
That's what you're participating in. It's not so much what's going on over there, but what am I being and doing in relationship to that?
Well, it's part of that the question, what would I do if I was in Nazi Germany?
Yes.
Well, what will I do if I'm in a situation? Would I risk my life to save? What would I do, if it's uncomfortable and bad for me to help the better greatness of everybody? I think it's easier to answer that the way I want to answer it as I get older. Probably less easier if I'm his age, young man starting out.
Well, I think that question maybe isn't super applicable here. We're not at the point of living right next to a concentration camp. We're still at the point of voting.
Well, I hate to tell you something. I was in Minnesota. I have a practice there as well, here in Florida, Minnesota. And I was at a church, and they let me speak because it's a form of marketing and helping the community. And this lady said to me, stood up and said, "Mr. Attorney," in Spanish, "we live in terror." And I said, you're speaking from a white guy perspective. I'm sorry. "We live in terror." And I go, "What are you talking about?" Because the police sit outside our home every day in our community, and they take people away, and we're scared to death to know if we'll see our children again. And that started a whole fight with the Catholic Church of Minnesota. A priest who was from India, who spoke Spanish. He actually did mass at the cathedral in Mexico, the Virgen de Guadalupe, that famous cathedral. And he had the entire immigrant community going to this small church miles away from the big city. And even the archdiocese was against him. And I ended up spending a lot of money and time defending him, attacking. I even told the archbishop in one meeting that I was going to see him in hell. That was the closest way I could, in front of a bunch of learned people. I was my way of insulting him. And we wrote these letters that were really intense about racism and everything else. They were willing to sell out their community, the parishioners, in my opinion, for the authority of the state. We got a police officer fired for racial profiling. We stopped them in that community. And and I do agree. The reason, Charles, I know you, and we have a history of being together politically and other things. We always had that goal one day to be elected.
Right, and
but,
you know, and I'm not tooting my horn. I'm an activist.
Absolutely.
I'm not just talking this stuff.
You walk the walk.
I've spent most of my adult life. Coalition of Immokalee Workers.
Exactly. You work there.
Voter education.
March with people.
On the NAACP
Absolutely.
Lawsuit filed for what Scott was doing with voting access and that kind of thing.
I'm going to tell you another thing. He spoke. We started Unidos Now.
The E-Verify.
Right. When
Tallahassee.
10 years ago. No, more than that. It was 2010, something like that.
Something around there.
And he spoke in front of the Senate. And it made a huge difference. And E-Verify did not come at that time for the Latinos and the rights of not him himself, but of the Latino community.
Amazing.
Charles walks the walk, talks the talk. He's talking right about the Immokalee workers and the rights of people. And I got to meet Rainbow Push. I got to go to Chicago. I got to meet Jesse Jackson's son and had long conversation because of you and your work with Rainbow Push and all those organizations. So some people, and my point to this was that when I was a young guy, probably like you, and because I think you have similar goals, is that I want to be elected. And elected for what? what I realized later on. I mean, if you follow your destiny, you will get to where you need to be. I ran for Congress, and just as I was doing that, I represented a guy, Joe Smith, that had killed Carly Brucia. And then O'Reilly and Fox attacked me mercilessly, and then everything blew up. And my daughter said, "Well, shouldn't you just?" I said, "Shouldn't I just get out of the race?" And she says, "No, you always say follow your destiny." So I did. I lost the election, the primary, because I'd spent all this money on this what do you call the
Campaign.
pollster that was going to say that I could beat. It was Catherine Harris that was at the time the congresswoman who did the hanging Chad stuff. If you go back in history. And I lost, but then I met a guy named Nelson, a guy who ended up being Biden's campaign manager in 07-08. He was director of the Democratic Party, and I ended up being in charge of the Democratic Party in Manatee County, and it did a lot of all these other things. But from that connection with Luis Navarro, we ended up working with Biden, hanging out with Biden. I spent hours talking to Biden. Just an amazing experience. Got me to the White House. I was there with Obama when he first. I met all the guys that make the stuff. We worked on DACA. I was there at the neighborhood ball. I saw every diva in the world. I was involved in. All because I followed my destiny. As a matter of fact, I came back to the White House another time, and we came back with all these Florida elected officials, senators, state senators, and representatives, and we were sitting there. We went, doing this thing, and then it was lunchtime, and a friend of mine said, "CJ, come with you." And 6 of us, not the state senators, we went into the West Wing, and we had a meeting, and the elected officials weren't there. My point is that if you follow your destiny, you will end up where you need to be. If you listen into your soul,
They put you there.
but so you can be elected and do nothing and be worthless, worse than worthless. You want to really make a difference. And as I'm older, I'm realizing that when I help a kid or person do something, say, Clayman, one day you do something really amazing, I'll get a little kick out of it, even if I'm not in this world. Because I think that, and that's why Unidos was started. It was to empower young people to get to the great universities so they can think for them. They don't have to believe what I say. Just think. It's just when we talk about religion, if I talk to a guy and he's all gung-ho Christian, I go, great. I said, have you studied anything else in religion? No. I said, I don't want to talk to you. Now, if you study everything, I want to hear your opinion.
And there's a difference between religion and spirituality.
Okay.
Because religion says follow these
rules,
formulas, follow these dictates, and you will be all right. Spirituality says, I want to find my own truth. I find my own truth. Each soul walks its own path. What is your truth? That is what spirituality says. Religion says, this is the prescription, follow it. Spirituality says, no, I don't agree with that. I don't see it that way. I have to come to an acknowledgement or an awareness of who it is I am and who I choose to be.
We're going to do a whole program on something like this because, Charles, I know that you were a preacher. I've seen you in the pulpit.
No, I'm still a preacher, but not in the traditional sense.
But you were a traditional preacher.
Yeah, I was at one time.
And I've seen you move people. And well, actually, the thing about Mackenzie is that you never get to give a speech after him. You always go before him because, no, it's not a joke. He's very timid and quiet here, but when he gets on the pulpit, he can make a demon into a god. He can change water into wine. I've seen you do it.
Well,
I've seen you do it.
I think to go back to the point you were making about politicians versus statesmen versus prophets, if you would, the people who've made the greatest impact in our world have not been elected officials.
I agree. Gandhi, MLK,
King,
on and on.
Buddha, all of them they've not been. And something comes to mind. Something comes to mind, and I thought about it during the whole duration of this, that Gandhi said, be the change you seek in the world. You be it. Yeah. Because it's the way we live and treat each other. It's the way I live and treat you that's going to impact you the most. Not what I say, but the way I interact with you. whether I'm respectful and conscientious and sensitive, and those kinds of things are going to have the lasting impression, not my words, because the words are shallow if the behavior doesn't line up with it. So I think those spiritual masters, in a sense, speak to us, and they tell us, yes, there's negative energy in the world,
Right.
but it's not for you to pine about the negative energy. It's for you to take the creative energy you have and do something to change that.
Do you all think that at the end of the day, good tramples over evil? I mean, fascism gets defeated by democracy. Good people end up getting into heaven, and the bad guys don't. I mean, if you believed in that, do you think that it works out that way?
I don't. First of all, I don't believe there's a heaven and a hell. So my theology is different in that respect. I think there's a place that all of us come from, to this dimension, and I think all of us go back to that. I don't believe good triumphs over evil. What I believe is that we're evolving as a species. And as we evolve and become aware, there are some things we will let go of. And I think human beings are evolving, but we're evolving slowly.
Wait, last thoughts and comments you might have. We're going to have to wrap this up. It's been very interesting.
I'm with him. That was dope.
That's it? That's his last thoughts?
No,
or
that was
can
dope.
you have another thought?
No, I'm with him.
Oh, you agree with
what
him?
he was talking about. Yeah, it was amazing.
Well, of course he
Yeah.
is. That's why he's here, man. Charles, he's not here because of his good looks. Anything else you want to say, Charles?
I'm done.
All right.
Charles like, no, and I'm good looking.
Clayman?
I had a lot more to say about
Say whatever you want.
generally.
Knock it out,
Say
bro.
it. Knock it out. It's your chance.
Okay, cool. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Christian fascism and just with regard to Ron DeSantis specifically.
All right.
Yes.
Perfect.
He, on the 16th, so this is a couple weeks ago now, did an interview with CBN News. That's a Christian YouTube news station. They have 1.1 million subscribers, and this interview got almost 500,000 views. The questions that the interviewer was asking were softballs, right? So it was clearly rehearsed. It was disgusting to watch this interview and just let him go on and on with these fascist talking points that are veiled. So it's not clear that they're fascist talking points. So I wanted to just kind of shed some clarity on some of the things that he's been saying. The first question was, who is Ron DeSantis? And I don't even mean the politician or the governor. I just mean like back to little Ron DeSantis. I mean, who are you at your core? What is your DNA all about? Of course, well, when we're fascists, we don't care about the politician or the governor. We care about who that person was when they were a little kid, when they were a little working class golden boy. His second question asked him about his parents, being whether or not either of them was a disciplinarian. So he's setting Ron DeSantis up to say good things about a disciplinarian upbringing. He's prepping people to accept whatever rules he has for them. Additionally, he said that he in his household had clear rules, which aren't the same as fair rules. And he said that in his household, he was not getting any handouts, which is just a lie on its face. Every single human being has handouts from day one.
Yes.
Nobody can survive on their own. We all have the benefit of some kind of upbringing. Mm-hmm. But of course, like a fascist, like conservatives in this country, he has to paint himself as this hard worker. Everything he's gotten has been earned. Nothing was handed to him. Because he wants to depict the other as people who are taking handouts. So that he can cut taxes for the rich. He was asked about baseball. The interviewer depicted him as a Little League star and then immediately called baseball a thinking man's game, which is just super interesting because it's hitting a ball with a stick.
Thinking man's game.
Yeah.
He was asked about Catholic grade school. He said Catholic grade school was stricter than his public schooling, which he went to public school in high school. And he depicted that as being good, as being religious even, as a proper type of education. He was asked if faith is a part of his life. He said he has a Christian-centered household, His kids go to a private Christian preschool or kindergarten, and him and his wife had their hearts warmed when his 4-year-old for Christmas asked for a sling. His 4-year-old asks for a biblical weapon, and it warms his heart because he's talking about the Bible. But of course, that's what happens when you raise little kids in Christianity and you raise them when all of their education is religion-centered. Mm-hmm. Half of what they think and talk about is violence.
Is it?
Yes.
You agree with that?
It is. Absolutely, I agree with that.
Why?
I agree with that because the God, this amorphous being that is depicted in the Bible, and we'll talk about the King James Version here because there are thousands of versions and variants of the Bible, and we have none of the original documents, is violent. He is jealous. He's vindictive. He is judgmental. He is a punisher. He likes the smell of burning flesh and the sight of blood. And if God can kill, and God can be judgmental, and God can be vindictive, so can I.
Exactly.
That's the Old Testament, though.
That is new and old. Because you find
that's what DeSantis is doing.
That's what he is depicting. He's like you say, he's wrapped himself in the garb of Constantinian Christianity and the Bible.
Yeah, me scared.
And he's presenting himself as this Christian governor who was brought up in a Christian home. It is Christian fascism 101.
Absolutely. I like this quote from DeSantis. I actually wrote down something he said because I think it highlights how fascists use religion. He said, "We are free because God has endowed us with inalienable rights. Our Constitution was created not to give us rights, but to protect the rights that God has already bestowed upon us." That sounds nice. I've heard conservatives say things like that all the time. Mm-hmm. But I want everyone listening to ask themselves, which rights are inalienable? Inalienable means unable to be taken away.
Yes.
Presumably, we're talking about the right to life or the right to liberty, the pursuit of happiness, maybe the right to own property or firearms, the right to practice one's religion.
Well, right to be gay.
Yes.
Maybe the right to be gay. But none of those rights has ever been absolute in this country or in any country. Mm-hmm. If a person's religion mandated cannibalism, for example, they wouldn't be allowed to practice that aspect of their religion. Felons can't own firearms in Florida. They also can't vote. The state and federal government can take away private property and use it for public use. If a person's convicted, or in lots of cases just suspected of a crime, they lose their right to liberty and pursuit of happiness. And if the crime is great enough, they lose their right to life. They're executed. Mm-hmm. So which rights are inalienable? It's just fascist dogma is what it is. And Ron DeSantis knows how to read. He can read the 13th Amendment, the part of the Constitution that says there's not slavery except as a punishment for crime. Mm-hmm. He knows about the history of the country and of Florida. He's aware of historical black codes where laws are passed that either directly target black people or people of color, or they're just criminalizing innocent behavior and then only applied to people of color. So they get arrested and re-enslaved. But then Ron DeSantis says that we're free because God has endowed us with inalienable rights. The rights that he personally would take away if you're convicted of a crime. So he's not...
And actually, so statistically, I think in the first 4 years, only 2 people were executed. Now they're ramping it up and they're executing more Florida prisoners.
It's politically convenient.
One of the laws that was just passed is a death penalty law. It no longer has to be a unanimous decision by the jury.
And he's now signing the death warrants at a big clip right now.
Yeah.
It does not have to be unanimous.
So when Ron DeSantis talks about people having inalienable rights, he cannot be talking about people of color. He's painting a false history of the country where every person has had equal protections, which just isn't true. He's minimizing the suffering and struggles of millions of people in order to play on a sense of religious nostalgia in order to secure votes. And that's the Christian fascism that I'm seeing a lot of.
Wow.
Especially from Ron DeSantis. And that was just this whole interview was nothing but that.
It was a whole setup.
Right.
So are we in the? So I think we, in conclusion,
We
for
have a
this show,
fascist
which
running for
I think,
president.
I think we got the
we got
conclusion.
two fascists, one leading and one falling in the polls, I guess. But do we?
How do we see that right now? The him coming up.
Well, I think I just will say that he's so far behind that I had started out with the Buttigieg comment. He released an anti-LGBTQ video that was so attacking Trump for not being anti-gay enough. It was the most radical, craziest 30 seconds that has ever been on TV, and advancing the most extreme slate of ideas or laws in modern history against the LGBTQ community. He is trying to tack so far right of Trump to show he's a better choice, that he's going to be a better chingon than Trump attacking people. And it's crazy. So
The other thing that DeSantis is aware of is that there are a lot of conservative black Christians who will buy into some of that.
Well, no, I mentioned on the first show, I know preachers in this community who are Latinos, who are the biggest DeSantis fans,
Hispanic community
and
too.
their entire congregation is undocumented people.
Yeah.
You talk about hypocrites and losers, and if, God forbid, if there is a hell, I'm sure they got first-class passage there, because I can't think of a bigger hypocrisy than you to be a DeSantis Republican, a Trump Republican, and lead the congregation of undocumented people.
Yeah.
I just,
It
I'm
is
just
tragic.
Yeah, I want to leave just with this quote from the Statue of Liberty: "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest, tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door."
Wow.
Beautiful.
That's the country I love,
Yes.
and I still have faith in. And I think if we get involved and we do more, we can change the world. You know, and I always ask people, what are you on this earth to do? Just to screw, have sex, have money, eat? Each of us has a responsibility to do something to make our place better, to make our world better, to make our lives better. So I want to thank you for listening in. If you listen to all of this or watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Please tell your friends. Listen to us on the podcast.
Share it,
Yeah,
please.
share it. We're going to start really rocking this. And any comments, too, would be amazing to help us out. And get involved. En perdón por mi gente por no hablar español, pero tenemos que hacer algo. No sé.
We're touching the ones that need to be touched, bro.
All right, good. All right, thank you, and
Yeah.
have a good one.